versus saturation, you can take specific hues, say in green, and desaturate them if you want that more desaturated tropical green kind of feel and look. And lastly, we have the hue versus luminance, which lets you control the overall brightness of a specific color. Personally, I mostly use hue versus hue and hue versus saturation, and try to do everything else around luminance with other tools. But that's completely up to you. Let's jump in and see how we can tweak the colors just a little bit using the curves. To use the curves, we're gonna head into the curves down here, and we're gonna have the hue versus hue and the hue versus saturation. Now we're gonna make a few tweaks here. So I'm gonna pull up the vector scope again so we can see what we're doing in terms of this, and we're gonna look at the image at the same time. First up, we're gonna try and draw on
I want to, sorry, I was looking at a tutorial, as I'm sure you can hear it. Meow. Hi. Properties. I want to fix my microphone, because I notice, um, I trusted myself as I trust you too. I myself as well as are you. Okay. So wait. Uh, oh, oh, geez. Hang on. Um, uh, chat. Chat. Also, I can turn on the chat box. Chat box. Um, Window capture. Oh, window capture. There we go. Hue versus hue. Yes, this is what I'm familiar with. Okay, I'm so poggers. I'm so poggers. Let's delete all of that. So, how did he do it from the beginning? There was Rec 7. So colors, space transform. Sorry, too much.
better. The bright spot of the skin tones we want.
I really want to fix my microphone though, so let's fix my microphone. Oh, I should not show this on screen. I myself, and I love you. I myself, and I love. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Hello? 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 Why does it sound so much better? Why does it sound so much better? Murmur, 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 murmur. Wait, did I fix it? I fixed it! Yes! It sounds so much better. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Is it my microphone? Wait, am I just delusional? Or does it sound better? It sounds better, right? Right? Frick. Okay. What about now? Okay. Sakura-chan, hi. Does my microphone sound better? Does it? There's static? Oh, I think that's my computer fan. Let me turn it down. Okay. How about this? Yay, no static. Or at least, I don't know. I mean, from what I can tell. You see, I hate Zoom because Zoom like makes me. Oh yeah, chat is on screen. Some new additions to the things on screen. You're yellow? Yeah. I wonder how you can change that. Can you like choose your own color? What color would I be? Oh my goodness. Okay. Sony S-Log or Sony Gamut. Sony S-Log 2. Okay. So
in our waveform to lie around 70. If we hover over here, add the qualifier in DaVinci Resolve, and then use display qualifier focus, we can hover over the skin tones and see on our waveform here where they lie. So if we pull up ours from pure black.
okay, so first let's do contrast as the person does it in the video. And I'm so sorry, I'm not reading chat currently. Oh, sorry. What? Bro, come on. I think Tuwa would be a light blue because fish. Yeah. Cyan is my favorite color by far. It is yeah, no, it is dude. Oh, sorry. It's way too sensitive now. Dude. Dude, this new or it's not a new microphone. I was like this entire time I was like, hey, can't I just fix it by like going into Zoom and like doing things with Zoom? And like fish. Yeah, no. Okay. How do we rename? Is it F2? Please tell me it's not F2. Oh, it's F16? The heck? There's no fucking sorry for cursing. There's no hecking F16 on my keyboard. What would I call this? Um, oh, contrast. Okay. So,
Pure white up here, and then all the tones in between. So to create some contrast in this image, we can take the dark areas in the shadows and pull them down, and we can take the bright areas and pull them up. And thereby, if we turn this off and then on again, we can see that we've created a lot more contrast and separated the dark areas and the bright areas a lot more. Step 3 is exposure.
step 3 is exposure. Wow, that looks cool. S-curve. I do that in Lightroom all the time. What if you edit photos with Lightroom? Excuse me. What if you edit photos in DaVinci Resolve? Like, would that be okay? That's something you can do. Okay, I wanted to learn Blender. 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 Stars. Oh, I gotta. Okay, maybe I should decrease the volume a lot more. Stars lost in the fever dream. Closet light, getting out of it.
Now, you might have shot in a correct exposure already
In
in your
my
camera, but after you've
sleep,
changed the
I
contrast a bit
dream
around, or maybe after
about
you converted into directional
once
lighting,
more. Getting out of it, getting out of it, getting out of it, getting out of sleep once more. Getting out of it, getting out of it, getting out of sleep once more. My chest is torn through with the sharpest solitude I've ever felt. I no more yearn for the starless world, crushing pain as its loneliness swirls. Around in my head, 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 around in my... That sound is way too loud. My chest is through with the sharpest solitude I found. I want to actually hear how this sounds when I open stream. So let's check it out. I want to actually hear how this sounds when I open stream. Oh my god, someone liked my comment. I want to actually hear how this sounds when I open stream. Oh my god, someone liked my comment. Okay. I no more your... Oh, it doesn't actually convert the emojis? Can't see the emojis on screen? If I change the style. Oh, it resets. I don't want to ask someone to send another emoji, but like I do, I can't actually see. Gosh. Around in my head, around in my head, around in my brain and blood beneath that skin wonders. Oh, it doesn't work. Damn. It does. Okay, which one do I like? I think I like the... It's just I like this some clean style more, but like the other style has like... I don't know. It has a transparency. Okay. If I'm living in the fever dream, living in my solace. Sorry. Dying in my solitude. How do I get rid of this top answer? Man, like, come on. Okay, I need to voice my thoughts more. I need to voice my thoughts more. The evil thoughts in my head. The evil thoughts in my head. The picture video looks so dynamic. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to learn how to do color correction better. So like wait, did I already? Oh, I already added the color transform here. So like, just wait until I actually grade it, because like, here's how it looks with when it well. Oh wait, why did I get rid of the tutorial? Gosh darn. Yeah, no, the guy was right about like precision. I want to be more precise in that. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I should fuck. Hack, 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 hack. Um, I think I should do something. I think I should go somewhere. I think I should do something. Task manager, save me. Task manager is using what is using each. Nine frames per second, 8 frames per second. The only thing I don't like about Dimension is that it lags. It lags. It lags. Where is the tutorial? Around in my head. Did you see my Minecraft videos in my history?
Right. So the most of the time we
Thank
have
you
to
so
do
much,
a little
Minecraft.
bit of exposure adjustments. Now here are some guidelines. This is the waveform. This helps you to lie around 70. If we hover over here, add the qualifier in DaVinci Resolve, and then use display qualifier focus, we can hover over the skin tones and see on our waveform here where they lie. So if we pull up the waveform a little bit larger, we can see now that our skin tones are lying around the 60 mark right here. So if we take the offset and just try and pull that up until we get those skin tones to lie around the 70 mark instead, now they're properly exposed. Now our footage look a little bit more washed out again. So we could go back to our contrast and try and add a little bit more, or we could do something like pulling down the lift that's sort of equal to pulling down the shadows, and pull up the gain to stretch those out a little bit more, and do that until we feel like we have a good contrast, and at the same time we have our skin tones lying in the correct place. I feel like this is a pretty good spot. We went from this to this. It looks a little bit better. The next step on the list, and the final step in our color correction of the simple tones, are lying up here around the red area, a little bit towards the red. Now we're moving the blob more natural than this magenta hue and tone that we had before to this one that looks a lot.
I no more. Here, wait, why did I get? I got rid of my Shimizu simulation tab. Ah! How could I live without it? How could I live without Shimizu simulation? Whoa, 2,100 views. Congratulations, AFW.
A lot more natural, maybe a little bit on the green side, but we can tweak that later on as well. I'm pretty satisfied with how this looks. Now that we're done with our color correction and hopefully have an image that looks as close as possible to what it looked like in real life, we can progress to the most objective area of color grading, which is the actual color grading, where we put a look on or we change the colors to fit the emotions, the vibe.
I will do this later. For now, I think I want to learn Blender stuff. I think I want to learn Blender stuff, and I need motivation. So, in the form of motivation, I will get my girlfriend to call me. Call me for motivation. Bye, Da Vinci. Blender. Oh, wrong thing. Sorry, everyone. Give me 1 second. Sorry. 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 Oh, what? Just added another source. Dreaming cost money, my dear. Let's see. Probably copyrighted, but yeah, let's go with it. Don't be sorry. We do not apologize for having. You know, I should put. Hang on. How can I put text on like stream? You can.
I can still smell the fire, though I know it's long died out. The smoke still hangs in my hair, and on some quiet eve,
Delete the default cube as always.
my eyes. So darling, play your violin.
Blender. I don't know how to. I know Rhino so much better.
Lived in the sea. Bring me to your ear. You can hear the tide waves.
Blender, blender, blender.
used to be, though now I'm but a shell. Oh baby, don't say sorry, darling, play
I'll wait to pull up a tutorial until the song's done.
I know it's what you
In the meantime,
darling, play your
how to put text on Streamlabs.
we will manage somehow. Don't regret anything. Remember what you're here for. You just play your violin. We will manage somehow.
That's good. That's a good song. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention to it, to be honest. I'm sorry. But it was just really like immersive. Like it kind of like enhanced the tone of like what I was experiencing. Which was cool. It was cool. Um Widgets. How do I stream label? Wait. That is a song from Sweet Trip. Sweet Trip. You will never know why. Oh, remastered. Oh my goodness. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. How do I? What the hacking hack? Choose stream label. Where is stream label? Oh, here it is. Nice. Hi, Allison. Okay. Simplify. Nice. What the heck is that? How do I just add text? I'm trying to do something in Blender, but I wanna. I'm pausing the music. Hang on. I really want to focus on like trying to. I want clarity. I want it to be like you can suggest, you can feel free to. Stream label what? Okay. How? I'm gonna explode! Okay. How? Feel free to add, to suggest, to share your own art. Or colon font size. What are you? I'm trying to work on something relate like a 3D model, but first I want to try and hang on. Did I do it? Did I do it? No. Oh, wait. Oh, I see. Hang on. What the heck? It's just okay. You know what? It's fine. You want my hair? I'm sorry. I have not been taking care of my hair whatsoever. I don't wash it anymore because I'm cringe. Okay. Um. Okay. Okay. Let's hang on. What do I want to make in Blender? How to sculpt Blender.
In this video, I'll show you how to get started with sculpting for complete beginners in Blender. So I'll show you how you can set up Blender for sculpting, and then I'll be covering all the basic tools and the basic brushes for sculpting. And then after I show you the basics of sculpting in Blender, we'll be doing a sculpting exercise by sculpting this cute fish character. And then I'll also show you a cool painting option in Blender Sculpt mode where you can paint some colors on the fish. And if you'd like to download these free project files of the finished fish here, then you can download the project files for free on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. I'll have the links in the description. Now, if you've never used Blender before and you're a complete beginner to Blender, then you may want to watch a complete beginner tutorial series just to learn the very basics of the program and navigating around the program and the basic shortcut keys and basic 3D modeling. So if you'd like to learn all the basics of Blender, then definitely check out my complete Blender beginner tutorial series. It's a 14-part tutorial series and it's all
Okay, let's watch that first.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan King and welcome to this Blender for Complete Beginners tutorial series. So in this 14-part tutorial series, I'm going to show you all of the basics of Blender. And throughout the tutorial, as I teach you all of the basic fundamentals of Blender, we're going to be creating this snowman artwork right here. So this is a 14-part tutorial series, and the entire tutorial series is going to be completely free here on my YouTube channel. So in this part, in part 1, I'm going to be going over the basic user interface of Blender. I'm also going to be going over some basic shortcut keys and navigation and moving around the 3D view, and I'll show you how to add objects.
In the meantime, let's just make our
Then in part 2, I'm going to be going into the user interface.
I already know
editor types, and I'll be showing you how to customize Blender to make your own workspaces. And I'll be showing you the basics of edit mode and object mode and how to edit your objects, and I'll show you how object meshes are made and some basic 3D modeling fundamentals and some basic shortcut keys to 3D modeling. Then in part 3, I'm going to be showing you how to use Blender's outliner to manage all of the objects in your scene. We're also going to be going over some more 3D modeling fundamentals, and then we're also going to start creating the snowman artwork by making abstract.
No, this is Blender.
Also introduce you to
Clip Studio Paint is the thing on the bottom. I can show you.
We're going to be doing some more modeling practice. So we're going to be modeling the snowman's hat and the snowman's arms and the carrot nose and the coal eyes and mouth. Then in part 5, we're going to be doing some more advanced modeling by modeling the buttons on the snowman and the little threads which go through the buttons. Then in part 6, I'm going to introduce you to cloth physics in Blender, and we're going to be using cloth physics to make the scarf fall on the snowman, and then we'll be just finishing up the scarf model. Then in part 7, I'm going to show you the basics of materials and shaders. So I'll show you the basics of materials and the material properties, and I'll be showing you the shader nodes, and we'll be adding a few basic materials to the objects. Then in part 8, I'm going to show you how to do UV unwrapping. And so I'm going to show you the basic fundamentals of UV unwrapping, and we're going to be UV unwrapping some of the objects. Then in part 9, I'm going to show you how to add textures in Blender. So I'll show you some great places online where you can download free high quality textures, and I'll show you what each of the texture maps do, and I'll show you how to properly add the texture maps into the materials. Then in part 10, I'm going to be going over the different main render engines in Blender, which is the Eevee and Cycles rendering engines. I'll also show you how you can set up your GPU in Blender for rendering, and then we're going to go over lighting. So I'm going to talk about the different types of lights which you can add, and then also world lighting and how to add in HDRI lighting to make your scenes more realistic. Then in part 11, we're going to be finishing the materials, and we're going to be going into a little bit more advanced materials.
Whoa,
a
that's
few
cool.
procedural materials. So we'll be using Blender's procedural shader nodes to create a basic procedural snow material and a procedural carrot material. Then in part 12, I'm going to show you how to use Blender's particle systems, and after I show you the basics of the particle systems, I'll also show you how to use the hair part of the particle systems, and we'll be making that scarf on the snowman a bit fuzzy by adding some hair particles to the scarf. Then in part 13, I'll show you how to add a camera, and I'll show you how to move the camera around, and I'll show you some camera settings. And then I'll show you how to add a depth of field, and we'll be also doing a few things to set up the scene, like adding a scene backdrop. Then in part 14, I will show you some render settings and how to render your image, and then we'll also be going over compositing, so I'll show you how to use Blender's compositor and add some different compositing effects to your final image. And
This looks like
a
I should make like a paper crane. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I should make like a paper crane. Oh my goodness, I have one of those. Ah, frick, I kicked something. Okay. While this tutorial man is just tutorial manning, this is from the psych ward. I made this in the psych ward. Good memories. Good memories. Okay, let's try our best. Well, first let's look at this. Let's see. Wow. That's so cool. How does it look in the camera? Where's my camera settings? Oh wait, I paused the tutorial and dumped me.
So this entire tutorial series is going to be completely free on my YouTube channel, but I do create these Blender tutorials for a living, so if you'd like to help support this channel, then some great places to do that are by checking out my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. So on my Gumroad store and Patreon page, you can get access to lots of Blender content that you can use as study material or to use in your project. So on my Gumroad and Patreon, you can get 3D models and assets, tutorial files, artwork project files.
Sorry, I'm just editing the sound.
Geometry node setups, and so much more Blender content on my Gumroad and Patreon. So if you join one of my memberships on my Patreon page, then you'll be helping to support the channel monthly and you'll get lots of Blender content. Or if you'd like to make a one-time purchase with any of my products, then my Gumroad store is a great way to do that. Now another really great Blender course for learning the fundamentals of Blender is CG Boost Launchpad course. So CG Boost Launchpad course has 250 plus lessons and over 22 hours.
How many cuts do you think this needs?
It's a very large,
probably needs like
and thorough course on learning all of the
wait, what would be so
to
cool?
get started with Blender. And all of the
the paper crane
and video tutorials are available for download. Or you can also follow along with the course on the website. So the course covers the basic workflows, tools, and features of Blender.
That is way too many.
There will also be different exercises which you can follow along, and throughout the course you'll also learn how to create this really cool stylized flying car animation. And so through creating that animation, you're going to learn basic modeling, you'll learn how to add materials, you'll learn how to do lighting and animation and rendering out your final animation. So I can highly recommend this Launchpad course for beginner Blender users. So if you'd like to purchase the course, then you can check it out with my affiliate link in the description. If you purchase the
it's like how do I squish? Damn. Move, rotate, let's transform. Oh, there we go. Squish. Okay, tab antenna mode. So let's select first. Oh wait, I have to with shift. All are selected. So let's make the little triangle. I can do this. What? But why don't the vertices in Rhino the vertices would connect automatically?
Through my affiliate link, then I'll earn a small commission, but with no extra cost to you. So now let's get started with the first part of this tutorial series. Alright, so here we are in a fresh new scene in Blender. Now during the entire tutorial series, I will be telling you the shortcut keys that I'm pressing. However, right down here in the corner in this gray box, there will be my screencast keys so you can see what buttons I'm pressing. Now, real quick before we actually do anything in Blender, I'd highly recommend you not use a trackpad like a little trackpad on a laptop. If you are using a little trackpad on a laptop or some kind of trackpad, I'd highly recommend just getting a regular mouse, and it should have a right click, a left click, the scroll wheel, and then also the scroll wheel button. Those 4 buttons are really important for navigating in Blender. So just any regular mouse should work fine. So when you first open up Blender, there's going to be this box here, and this is called the splash screen. And there's usually a really cool artwork from someone in the community. And every time there's a new major update of Blender, they have a new splash screen with a different artwork. So currently, as I film this video, the latest stable version of Blender is 4.0.2. You can see there in the corner. However, in the future, in updates of Blender, you can totally follow along with this tutorial series. In newer versions and updates of Blender, they usually do some bug fixes, and they sometimes add new features, but generally things are the same, so you should be able to follow along just fine even if you're using a newer version of Blender. Now there are going to be some different buttons here on the splash screen, but I'm instead just going to click on the splash screen to get rid of it. We can get to all these settings up here on the file and the edit, and we'll be going over those later. Now, before we actually do anything in this 3D viewport, I want to change the size of Blender.
I'm thinking of paper crane.
The size of the user interface and the buttons.
Paper crane. But I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, scale, scale, scale. Where is my scale? When you figure out its shape, you should color it like the one. I should, yes. And I will learn how to, but I don't know currently how to do that. So personally, it's a... There has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way to do this. I don't even know how to make. I forgot how to make this, but I did actually make this one. Yes, a nurse taught me. Oh wait, I can just freaking copy and paste.
Just because they are a little small, especially because I have a large monitor, and it'll also be easier for you to see on YouTube. So what I'm going to do is click here on Edit, and we're going to go to Preferences. So this is going to open up a new window here. We can just drag this over here, and this is going to be Blender's user preferences. Now there's lots of different settings. You can change different themes. You can change different shortcuts. Most of the time, you really don't have to change anything in the user preferences, and you can learn more about things as you get more into Blender. But what I'm going to do is go here to Interface, and you can see under Display, there is a resolution scale. So I'm just going to turn this up a bit because I want the resolution scale to be a bit bigger so it's easier to see everything. It's actually easier for me to see everything, and it's easier for you to see on YouTube. And personally, I like a value of 1.3. I think that is a pretty good size. And then one more thing that I like to change is right here on this line width. I like to change this to thin because
I actually don't like
looks
that.
a little bit better for me. So you could make it thick if you wanted to. I think that just looks a bit weird, so I'm going to turn it to thin. But really, these don't really matter. These settings aren't too important. Just make it look nice how you like it. And then if you want to save these preferences, you can click on this Save Preferences button. And this will save the preferences and remember what you've changed so that whenever you open up a new Blender file, these settings will be applied. And so you won't have to change the settings every time you open up Blender. So you can click on the Save Preferences.
I rage quit too. It's
X here just to close Blender's user preferences. Alright, so in Blender, the main workspace that you have here is the 3D viewport. And in the 3D viewport, you can see there are 3 different objects here. So this object here is the cube. We call it the default cube because it's the default cube in Blender. When you open up Blender, there's already a cube. Then this over here, this is the camera. And so wherever the camera is, that's where it'll actually render. Because when you actually render out an image, once you've created an artwork, you need some kind of angle for the scene to actually render from. So wherever the camera is, that's what it will render. And then also on default, Blender comes with this lamp here. And so this is actually going to light the scene. Because if you don't have any lights in your scene, when it renders, everything's just going to be very dark. And so Blender does have this little default lamp here. Now, to orbit or rotate around the 3D scene, you're going to click and hold down the middle mouse wheel. So I can click and hold it down. I can move around here, just move my mouse. So I can kind of look at the bottom of the cube or the top, and then just let go of the middle mouse wheel to place that movement. So clicking down the middle mouse wheel and moving around is helpful, but what if I want to kind of move my view over to this side to kind of look at the camera or move over here? Well, to do that, you're going to do the same thing by clicking down the middle mouse wheel, but you're going to hold down the shift key as you do that. So hold down the shift key, then click and drag with the middle mouse button, and this is called panning. So I can pan around, so I can move over here, look at the camera, and then I can just hold down the middle mouse wheel and look around, and you can see now our center of rotation is kind of over
This
here
looks so
because
bad.
we panned it. I can do that again. So hold the shift key and click and drag with your middle mouse wheel to move that around, and then I can just click with my middle mouse wheel again to orbit around this view. Now to zoom in and out, you're just going to use your scroll wheel. So just scroll in or scroll out, and that'll zoom you in or zoom you back. So let's just move over here to the camera. So I'll hold down the shift key and then click with my middle mouse wheel and drag over and then let go. And then I can just scroll with my scroll wheel to zoom in. And then I can just click with my middle mouse wheel and move over here, and there's the camera. So let's go back over to the cube. So I will middle click and let's move over here so I can actually see the cube. Then I will hold down the shift key and I will middle click and drag over here. And then I can kind of zoom in here and we can kind of zoom into the cube. And another way to zoom in and out is to hold down the control key and then you can click with your middle mouse wheel and drag. So if for some reason you don't want to scroll a lot, you can hold down the control key and then just click with the middle mouse wheel and drag back and forth. Now you can see as I'm zooming in, we can't really zoom into the cube all the way, and that is because our rotation point is kind of right here. It's kind of in some invisible spot here in the 3D view, just kind of right there. But what if I want to change my rotation point back to the cube? Well, why this happened is because we were panning by shift middle clicking. So to move our rotation point back to the cube, you can hold down the Alt key and then you can middle click on the cube. You can see now it's going to change our rotation point back here. So just hold down the Alt key and then middle click where you want the rotation to change to. The other way to do this is to press the period key on your number pad. And if for some reason your keyboard doesn't have a number pad, I will be talking about that later. But if you do have a number pad, you can press the period key, and the period key will center the rotation point to whatever object you have selected. Now,
I didn't know that.
The rotation point is to press Shift B. So if I press Shift B, that is going to bring up a box, and I can click and drag and make a box of where I want to look at, and then I can let go, and that is going to zoom me into where the box was. So now to select different objects in your scene, you can just left click to select on the object. And how you know the object is selected is because it kind of has that yellowish outline.
Diplodocus. I don't know. Diplodocus.
It says camera. If I click on this, now it says light.
I'm so sorry, I don't know what that means. I didn't even know it's a type /I. Oh yeah. The tone indicators, when you get the tone indicators, oh no, my goodness. The world ends.
Now it says cube. Now another way to select stuff is to use the box select. And to do that, you're just going to left click and drag and then let go. And you can see that if you just left click and drag anywhere, it's going to just select whatever is in the box. Another way to do this is to hit the B key. So if you hit the B key, that will add this little crosshair here, and you can click and drag and make a box, and then you can let go and anything in the box will be selected. Now, if you want to select multiple objects at the same time, you can hold down the Shift key. So hold down the Shift key, I'll click here to select the camera, and continue to hold down the Shift key and left click again, and now you can see all three of these objects are selected. Now, if you have many objects in your scene and you want to select all of the objects at once, the way to do that is to press the A key. So if I just click here to select the cube, now if I press the A key, you can see it's going to select all 3 of those objects. Now to deselect all the objects, you can double tap the A key. So tap the A key once, it'll select all the objects in the scene, double tap the A key, and then everything.
I'm so sorry, I'm not even paying attention to the tutorial and I'm just like doing my own thing. Let's go back to this.
But in this video, I'll just be covering the basics of the sculpting part of Blender. And after you watch this video, if you find that you really enjoy sculpting and you want to get more into sculpting, then I can highly recommend checking out CGBoost course, Master 3D Sculpting in Blender. So that's a much larger course on sculpting, and it goes into so much more depth into sculpting. So in the course, you'll learn all the sculpting basics, like the different brushes, the different tools, and sculpting workflows. And the course also has some different beginner exercises which you can follow along to get better at sculpting. You'll also learn some cool techniques for creating base meshes for your sculpts. And then the course covers the entire process of creating this cute creature. So after this video, if sculpting is something that you want to get more into, then I highly recommend checking out the sculpting course by CGBoost. And if you purchase the course through my affiliate link in the description, then I'll earn a small commission, so that's also a great way to help support this channel. Now before we get into sculpting, I'd highly recommend using a drawing tablet if you're able to, because drawing tablets make sculpting so much easier and it can really improve your sculpts. Now if you're just getting started with sculpting and you want to just try it out and see if you like sculpting, then you can definitely use a mouse, but it's much harder to sculpt with a mouse, so I'd highly recommend using a drawing tablet if you're able to. And so in this video, I'm going to be using this small Wacom pad tablet, so it's not anything fancy, it's not a display tablet or anything, it's just a small pad tablet which I can just plug into my computer, and then I look at my monitor, and then the pad tablet is down on my desk and I just sculpt using the pen. And using a drawing tablet is much better for sculpting because you're able to have a much better posture, you're able to make nice smooth strokes with the pen, and most drawing tablets have pen pressure, so you're able to use the pen pressure to make, for instance, the brush size thicker or the brush strength stronger. And if you're interested in purchasing a drawing tablet, then I do have some Amazon links in the description to some tablets that I recommend, and those are affiliate links, so if you purchase something through those links, then I'll earn a small commission, but with no extra cost to you. Now when you're doing sculpting in Blender, you need to start off with a high poly mesh for the sculpting, because if I just hit the tab key to go into edit mode of this cube here, when you're sculpting, it pulls around the geometry of the mesh to actually sculpt the mesh. So if I were to try to sculpt with a very low poly object like this cube, I wouldn't be able to sculpt much detail because this model is so low poly, because it has a vertex here and then another one here, but it doesn't have any vertices in between them. So what I'm going to do is press the A key to select everything in the scene, and I'll hit X, and let's just click on delete. So I'll now press Shift A for the add menu, and I'm going to go down here to mesh, and I'm just going to add an icosphere because an icosphere is nice and smooth and round and it's very detailed. However, you can see this is kind of low poly, so if I click right behind me on the add icosphere settings, I'm going to click on the arrows here just to turn up the icosphere settings, and I'm just going to turn up really high to like a 7. If that's a bit laggy for you, you don't have to turn up that high, but I'm going to turn up to a 7 so it is nice and smooth and round. And then I can
I can't. Where's my icosphere? Icosphere, where are you? Oh, there. Vertices. It's in my paper crane. Wait, what have I done? What have I done? Ah! Ah! Rah! Okay, goodbye, paper crane. Icosphere.
here to close the add icosphere settings. Like a 7, low poly, so if I click right behind me on the add icosphere settings, I'm going to click on the arrows here just to turn up the icosphere settings, and I'm just going to turn up really high to like a 7. If that's a bit laggy for you, you don't have to turn up that high, but I'm going to turn up to a 7 so it is nice and smooth and round. And then I can click here to close the add icosphere settings. So now we can go to Blender's sculpt mode, because right now we are just in the object mode. So there are two ways to get to Blender's sculpt mode. You can just select the object and then you can click here in the corner and you can change it from object mode to sculpt mode. But what I prefer to do is to click right here to go to Blender's sculpting workspace. And this will automatically take you into sculpt mode of the object that you have selected. So you can see right here it's taken us into sculpt mode, but it's also showing us now the different settings for sculpting right here. It has some more settings up here for sculpting. sculpting, and then right over here you can see we have the panel with the brushes. So I like to jump to the sculpting workspace so everything's already set up. Now, just so you're aware, all of these settings right here and all these different panels, all of these settings are the same settings which are right over here. For example, you can see there is the radius and the strength. So the radius is the size of your brush and the strength is how strong it is. And those settings are also right here. So we have the strength and also the radius. Then there's this Dyn Topo setting right here, and this setting is also right down here.
Oh wait,
so
I should customize my
the settings on the
my
side panel are the
hotkeys.
same. But
So
then right over here on the left side, we have all.
How do I file, edit, preferences? No. My hotkeys, my hotkeys, my hotkeys. Where would it be? Guess it would be Emap. Find them. Brush size. What? Hello. Okay, I can do it later.
These sculpting brushes. Now before we get into the brushes, I want to go over basic navigation. So I have my drawing tablet on my desk right in front of me, and then I also have my keyboard a little bit higher up above my tablet. And I'm going to put my hand over the shift and control keys because the shift and control keys are very common buttons that you'll use when you're sculpting. Now you can change the settings of your tablet in the driver settings or on the graphics tablet settings on your computer. However, I've just left everything at the default, so the shortcut keys should work the same if you've just left everything at the default. Now usually the tablet pens will come with a back button and a front button. So to zoom in, I'm going to hold down the control key and then click and drag with the front pen button. Now I'm not actually pressing down with my tablet. I'm not actually pushing the pen down on the surface. I'm just hovering my pen over the surface and then I'm clicking with the front pen button. So hold down the control key and then click with the front pen button, and you can click and drag to zoom in and out. But again, my pen is just hovering over the surface, but it's not actually pressing down on the drawing tablet. Now, if you don't hold down the control key and you just click with the front pen button, that is going to orbit around. So I can look around the sphere.
What the heck?
Now, if you hold down the shift key and then click and drag with the front pen button, that is going to pan around. So I can move over here to the right side.
Hello. I have a little hotkey for this. Maybe. Browsers. Wait, I can put a little smiley face. A little woo-woo. That's so gross. Ah, kill him with fire! Sorry, I'm a little...
Here to the left side. Now another way to zoom around your sculpt.
It's cute. I'm so sorry. I'm so... Okay, I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back. There. The silly goober. Okay. Sorry. I don't know what's...
is to hold down the Alt key and then just click with the front pen button. And you can see wherever I'm clicking, that's going to kind of zoom over to that area. Now to actually sculpt on the digital clay, we're not actually going to use the pen buttons. We're actually going to press down on our tablet. So you can just click and then just drag around and then press down on your tablet and it's going to add clay. Now once you've sculpted on an area, if you want to zoom into that specific area, you can hit the period key on the keyboard and that's going to zoom into that specific area. So if I want to like sculpt over here, I can sculpt there by just pressing down on the tablet and then hit the period key. And you can see now it's going to zoom into this location. So if I just orbit around by clicking with the front pen button and just moving my pen over the tablet surface.
I messed it up. Delete. Delete. Backspace. Oh, Ivan, ¿cómo estás? Bienvenido. Yo lo siento por mi español. Lo siento. Entonces, hoy vamos a sculpting for complete beginners in Blender. Goodbye. I need to remake the. Hang on. Shift A. Ico speeder. Oh. Yeah. Sculptor.
You can see we've zoomed into that area. So again, if I just press down on the tablet and draw, that is going to add clay. Now, if you want to get rid of clay, so if you want to push the clay back in instead of pulling it out, you can hold down the control key. So if I hold down the control key and then just sculpt here, you can see it's pushing in the clay instead of bringing it out. Now, if you don't want to hold down the control key, you can instead click on the minus button. So now that it's set to the minus button, if I just click and sculpt along here, you can see it's going to push in the clay. Then if I click back here to the plus, now I can just sculpt and it's going to bring out the clay. So let's now go.
Oh yeah, I don't know how the top 10 system works. I'm so sorry. I wish I could get rid of it, but it doesn't let me. Number 3. Why are you decreasing? Like, I don't know why it's decreasing.
Over the different brushes. So I'm not going to go over every single brush because this is a beginner tutorial and there's no point in overwhelming you with all the brushes. Most of the brushes I actually don't use. There's probably just like 5 brushes that I use most of the time. So I'll just be going over the main brushes that I think you need to know. Now the brush which is on default here is the draw brush. And if you want to make this bigger so you can see all the names of the brushes, you can click and drag out here in the corner and that is going to make it bigger. And now you can see there's all the different names of the brushes. Or if you want to collapse them, you can click and drag and make this smaller. You can also make it really small if you just want to have 1 row of brushes, or you can completely close it. But I'll just leave this how it is. I like how it is with 2 rows of brushes. So the first one here is the draw brush, and this is the default brush.
Korean, oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to translate that. So many chat messages. Okay, what were we doing? Hello, Rinyan. Oh my god! Look, isn't my microphone so much better? Isn't it so much better? It's so much better. So much better. Okay. The one thing I do, oh my goodness. One thing I edit preferences. Keymap. Sculptor. Okay, let's look up. Sorry, I cannot see. Chat for a second. How to change brush size in Blender. Shift B. Okay, so first. E for brush. E for brush. Sorry, everyone. So apparently it's the brackets. Yes, it's the brackets. Okay. So let's make a new freaking Razor Central. God, I'm so sorry. I'm doing most of this off screen, but Blender. Wait, I shouldn't. Sorry. Duplicate. Rename. Blender! Change this to delete. Wait, what? What was it? Oh, it was brackets. Okay, now that that's done. Okay.
And you can see it's just going to make a little blob of clay, kind of like a little hump there. Now the next most common brush that you'll probably use is the clay strips brush. And the clay strips brush is basically going to add layers of clay. Now, I also want to show you the strength and the radius because you can see this is kind of small right now. So right here you have the strength, so you can drag this up and down. So if I turn it way up all the way to 1, now if I sculpt here, you can see it's going to be a lot stronger. Or if I make this really low, now if I sculpt here, you can see it's barely adding any detail. So I'll turn this up pretty high. Maybe I'll turn this up to like a 0.7, so it's kind of stronger. Then we also have the radius here, so I can drag up the radius, and now if I start to go along here, you can see we're adding in much larger layers of clay. Now there is shortcut keys for the radius and the strength. So if you press the F key, then you can drag your pen bigger or smaller, and then just click to confirm that, and that's going to change the size of the brush. So F, make it really big, click, and then you can just sculpt along there. Now the radius is Shift F. So if you press Shift F, now you can see it's going to show you how strong it is by this number here and also how dark it is. So if I turn it like all the way up to 1, now you can see the strength is going to be a lot bigger. Or again, if I press Shift F, I can make this really small, maybe just like a 0.1, and now you can see it's going to be very subtle. So again, F to change the size and Shift F to change the radius, but if that's too hard to remember, you can easily just change the strength and the radius right here. Now, while we're talking about the strength and the radius, I also wanted to talk about the pen pressure. So most tablets will come with a pen pressure. So basically, that is a sensitivity in the pen, which is going to detect how hard you are pressing the pen down on the tablet. And this is another reason why using a drawing tablet is so much better than using a mouse for sculpting, because you can use the pen pressure. Now, if you click on this button here, that is going to turn on the pen pressure. So right now, we'll just leave it on here for the strength. So now that the pen pressure is enabled, if I just push down really lightly, you can see it's only adding a little bit of clay. But if I push down really hard, now you can see it's adding a lot more clay. And if I just make my brush a bit smaller, let me zoom out here. I can start by pressing down really lightly, and then I can slowly press down harder and harder, and you can see it's going to be really strong. Then I can slowly press down lighter and lighter, and it's going to get less strong. So that's super useful. Let's turn this off by clicking on this button. Now the other one is the radius. So if I click on this button here, that'll turn on the pen pressure. And now if I start to sculpt here, you can see it's really small. And then if I press down harder, you can see it'll get much bigger. And then I can press down just a little bit and it'll get much smaller. So this is useful for making really nice organic looking strokes. Now usually when I'm sculpting, I like to have the radius turned off, but I like to have the strength turned on. That's just how I like it, but you could also turn on both of them. And if you turn on both of them, when you press down harder, it'll get stronger and bigger. And if you press down lighter, then it'll get smaller and less strong. So you can definitely do that if you want to. You can really do whatever you want. And as you're sculpting, you can also turn them on and off depending on what you're working on. But I'm going to keep the radius turned off and the strength turned on. All right, so let's go back over the brushes now. So the next brush that I want to show you is the crease brush. So this is a super common one. So if I just zoom in here, let's say that I want to make a bit of a crease here. Let me just make my brush bigger. I can just go along here and you can see it's basically going to pinch in the clay and kind of add a crease there. So I can just go along here and kind of add a nice crease there. Now if you want to bring it out instead, you can again hold down the control key as you are sculpting. And when you hold down the control key, again, just like I showed you for the draw brush, it's going to do the opposite effect. So you can see if I'm holding down the control key, instead of it creasing it in, it's going to kind of pinch it out and make like a little sharp bump there. And the same thing works for the clay strips brush. If I just normally sculpt, it'll sculpt out. But if I hold down the control key, you can see it's going to sculpt in. Let's go to another super common brush, which is the smooth brush. And this is super useful for smoothing out your sculpt after you've sculpted, because you can see right here, if you kind of zoom in, you can see all the topology there and it maybe looks a little bit rough. So let me just make my radius bigger. So now I can just lightly go along here using that smooth brush. You can see it's going to smooth out the clay and make it look a lot nicer. Now the smooth brush is so commonly used that there's actually a shortcut for it. Now there are actually shortcuts for all the brushes. If you just hover your mouse over the brushes, you can see it's going to show you a shortcut. So you can see like this one, the shortcut is V. So if I hit V, that'll go to the draw brush, and there's different shortcut keys for all of them. I usually just click over here to click on each one of the brushes. However, the smooth brush is used so often that if you hold down the shift key, that's going to automatically switch over to
Como peces en la mar, nadamos, 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 nadamos. Sorry, I'm just changing my hotkeys so that I can like. Wow,
to the smooth brush, and then if you let go of the shift key, that'll remove the smooth brush and bring it back to the brush that you were using before. So for example, let's say I'm using clay strips brush. I'm going to go along here and I'm just going to sculpt some layers of clay. So let's say I want to smooth this out. Well, instead of clicking here to the smooth brush, I can just hold down the shift key and it will automatically turn my brush into the smooth brush, and I can go along here and just smooth it out. But then as soon as I let go of the shift key, it'll go back to the brush that I was using before. So I can add a bunch of clay here, hold down the shift key, and then just lightly go along here and kind of smooth it out. And then I can just go back to using the clay strips brush. Now another common brush that you might use is the inflate brush, and this is going to do exactly what the name says. So if I just go along here, you can see it's basically going to inflate whatever I'm sculpting. So it's basically making it lumpy and kind of popping it out. Now another cool brush that you might use a lot is the scrapes brush. So for this, let me again just make my brush a bit bigger. So I'll press the F key, make it bigger. So with the scrapes brush, it's basically going to flatten it out and kind of scrape away the clay. So if I want to make this smooth, you can see if I go along here, it's kind of just like flattening it out. It's almost like I'm scraping away the clay and making little sharp points. So I can just go along here, kind of push that away and kind of flatten that all out and kind of scrape away the clay. And then another super useful brush, this is a really common one, is the grab brush. And I do use the grab brush a lot, and so the grab brush is right here. Now the grab brush, it's really easy to remember the shortcut. The shortcut key is the G key, so just hit G for grab. That'll go to the grab brush. And for the grab brush, it's usually better if your brush is really big. So with the grab brush, instead of it sculpting the clay, it's going to pull around the clay. So if I kind of zoom way out here, make my brush really big, you can see I can pull the clay around. So this is super useful just for moving around the clay and changing the proportions of your sculpt. So if you're sculpting something like a face and then you realize maybe the proportions are a bit off, or maybe when you're first starting your sculpt, if you just want to play around with
Sorry, I'm trying to, it's just like, I want to like do a specific. Right.
With the base mesh, you can just kind of pull this around, and this brush is very useful. Now, another useful brush, which is similar to the grab brush, but it is a bit different, is the snake hook brush. So if I change this over to the snake hook, now if I just click and drag here, you can see it's similar to the grab brush, but instead of it pulling around a large area, it's just going to pull around this small area, and I can kind of pop out this area, maybe bring this out. So it's going to kind of make sort of like a snake shape. Now, another really useful feature for sculpting that you'll probably use a lot is the symmetry. So I've just brought back this original icosphere here, and let's say that you're sculpting like a face or a character or something which is symmetrical. And if you want one side to be mirrored over to the other side, what you can do is click on these buttons here. So these are the symmetry settings. You can see it kind of looks like a butterfly there, and the most common one you're going to use is the X. So if I turn on the X symmetry, now you can see as I move my brush here, you can see there's a little blue dot here, and then also another little blue dot on the other side showing you where it's going to mirror. So if I was sculpting a face here, you can see it's going to mirror on the other side. So that's how you can add symmetry when you are sculpting a character or a creature or really anything which is symmetrical. And you can also turn on the X one and the Y one if you want to as well. You can see that's going to add the symmetry on the X, Y, and Z axis, but for most things you're probably just going to use the X axis to symmetrize it back and forth. Now this happens for me a lot. Let's say I'm sculpting a face or something and I'm going to start to sculpt the eye, and then I realize that I forgot to turn on the symmetry. Well, what you can do is click on this little drop down arrow right here, and then there is a symmetrize setting, and you can see there is a direction, and most of the time you can just leave it at -X to +X, or you might need to change it from +X to -X, but I'm just going to leave this how it is, and then click on the symmetrize button. And what that did is it took the -X, which is over on this side, and then it mirrored it over to the +X, which is over on this side. And then of course, click on the X button here to turn on the X symmetry, and then you can continue to sculpt your character, and it will mirror it over to the other side. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the video, but if you have a very low poly mesh and you try to sculpt with this, let me just add a cube here and go to sculpt mode. You can see if I try to sculpt this, I can't really add much detail here. Even if I go to the clay strips brush and start to add clay here, start to sculpt, you can see it's not really doing anything except on the edges. And that is because this is a very low poly mesh. So you need a very high poly mesh like this object here. It's very high poly because the sculpt mode actually moves around the geometry of the mesh. But usually when you're sculpting, you're going to need to add more geometry as you're sculpting. Because let's say I'm going to pull out the mesh here. Let's just drag this up here. Let's say I'm maybe making a limb on a character or something. You can see as I pull this out here using the snake hook brush, you can see the geometry is being all stretched out. If I hit the tab key to go into edit mode, you can see the vertices and faces are being really stretched. So as you're sculpting, you're going to need to add more geometry as you sculpt. And there's two different ways to do that. And those two settings are right up here. So there's the Dyne Topo and there is the remesh. And I'll show you how to use both of them. So first, let's go over the remesh. So you can remesh the sculpt as you are sculpting, and it's going to smooth out the geometry and it's going to even out the geometry. So let's say that I want to add more detail to this, because if I go here to the clay strips brush and then I start to sculpt here, you can see because all the faces are really stretched, it just looks really warped and weird. So what I can do is I can press the R key, and when I press the R key, a grid is going to show up, and I can drag my pen back and forth, and this will change the size of the remesh. So I'll just make it a bit smaller and then just click to place that there. Now I haven't actually remeshed it, so to remesh it now, I can press Control R, and Control R is going to remesh the sculpt, so you can see the sculpt still retains its shape. However, it's given lots more detail to the geometry, so now if I start to sculpt here, you can see the geometry is nice and smooth, and that looks much better. If I press the R key again and drag this grid here and make it really small and then press Control R, you can see it's going to be really low poly. So this is a really great workflow using the remesh. So as you're sculpting, you can occasionally press the R key, make it more detailed, then press Control R to remesh it, and then you can add more detail as you need it. So that's a really great workflow. Another really great workflow to sculpting is the Dyne Topo, and the Dyne Topo will add more geometry as you're sculpting. So if you're just sculpting in a specific spot and you're sculpting a really detailed area, it's just going to add more detail to that area. So to show you, I'm going to press the R key, make this a bit smaller, and then I'll press Ctrl R and it's going to remesh it. So you can see all the individual faces now. Well, if I click on this check mark here, and then I just need to click on OK, that is going to turn the Dyn Topo on. So with the Dyn Topo, if you click right here on the drop down, you can see there's going to be a detail size. So for example, I'll just turn this to like a 6 for now. So now if I start to sculpt here, you can see it's adding more geometry as I sculpt. If I hold down the Z button, that's going to bring up this pie menu, and I can move my mouse over to wireframe and then let go. You can also just click on this button here to go to wireframe, and you can see here's the geometry of the mesh. But where I've sculpted, you can see it's much more detailed, and if I just sculpt more and more, maybe zoom in a bit and then sculpt more and more, you can see it's going to be much more detailed. If I hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and let's just go back to solid view, you can see now it's more detailed where we have sculpted because of that Dyn Topo. But then right over here, it's lower detailed. So let's go back into sculpt mode. You can see it actually turned the Dyn Topo setting off. So I need to click on this. So now that I've gone over the basic brushes and the basic tools, let's do a sculpting exercise by sculpting the cute fish character. So I'm just going to click right back here to go to the layout, and that'll take us back to object node, and we can just delete this practice object. And let's now model a base mesh for the fish. So I'm first going to press Shift C to make sure that this 3D cursor here is in the center of the scene. So I'll now go to the add menu, and I'm just going to add a cube. And I will hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to go to the face select, and I'll just select the front of the cube. And I will hit E to extrude.
Going too fast.
Let's now model a base mesh for the fish. So I'm first going to press Shift C to make sure that this 3D cursor here is in the center of the scene. So I'll now go to the add menu, and I'm just going to add a cube.
Ay, caramba.
And I will hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to go to the face select, and I'll just
Tab to go into edit mode. Face select.
select the front of the cube. And I will
Front of the cube.
hit E to extrude. We're just going to extrude out the front of the cube a bit, and then extrude out again and kind of scale it down, and then bring it down on the Z axis and bring it over on the Y axis.
Oh my
Let's now
god.
hit tab to go back to
Slow
object.
down. Please, please, please. I have a wife and children. Wife and kids. They need me to make this fish. But the fish is going too fast. Ah, my goodness. Okay, there.
Object mode, and I'll press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and I'll use the object context menu and click on shade smooth.
What?
You can also, and I'll use the object context menu, press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels.
A subdivision what the hecking heck? I'm adding. Oh, there.
Levels, and I'll use the object context menu and click on shade smooth. You can also click on object and then click on shade smooth right there. And I'll hit tab to go back into edit mode, and I'm going to click right here on this button to go to the vertex select, and I will hold down the alt key and then select that loop of vertices there. And I will scale it up a bit, and I can also bring it back a bit, and then maybe press the A key to select the entire mesh and scale it.
Please, it's too bad.
We'll hold down the Alt key and then select that loop of vertices there.
Okay. What am I doing?
And I will scale it up a bit, and I can also bring it back a bit, and then maybe press the A key to select the entire mesh and scale everything in just a little bit. Let's also click on this button here to go to the face select. We can select this face and maybe bring it out a bit and scale it down a little bit. So this is going to be the front of the fish, and this will be the back.
Dude! I messed up the fish. I messed up the fish. Okay. Since we're using so many freaking keyboards, I guess I can just keyboard my keyboard. The dream of using a keypad is gone. Okay, so then extrude. No. Z? No. Okay, let's fix it. So, if I remember correctly, this is supposed to extrude. Extrude. The heck? Okay, let's just start over. Let's just start over. Please, please, I want to be free. I want to be free like a bird. Or a fish. Dun dun dun. Cube. Como un gato. Okay, start. So you select, you choose the face tool, you extrude this, you extrude it again, and you make it small. Then you select all, Control 2 for whatever reason. And oh yeah, wait, shade smooth. Then what?
Key object mode, and I'll put the front of the cube of it, and then extrude out again and kind of scale it down, and then bring it down on the Z-axis and bring it over.
Bring it down on the goddamn Z-axis. Fish. What?
On the y-axis. Let's now hit tab to go back to object mode, and I'll press Control 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and I'll use the object context menu and click on shade smooth. You can also click on object and then click on shade smooth right there. And I'll hit tab to go back into edit mode, and I'm going to click right here on this button to go to the vertex select, and I will hold down the Alt key and then select that loop of vertices there.
Okay.
And I will scale it up a bit, and I can also bring it back a bit, and then maybe press the A key to select the entire mesh and scale everything in just a little bit. Let's also click on this button here to go to the face select. We can select this face and maybe bring it out a bit and scale it down a little bit. So this is going to be the front of the fish, and this will be the back of the fish. So we'll select the back of the fish here, and we will hit the I key to inset that face, and then we can also scale it up on the Z-axis, and then also
Dude, what are you doing?
And we'll hit object, and then let's also select the back of the fish here, and we will hit the I key to inset that.
I key. Okay. Freaking hell, dude. Why is this I key so weird? There.
That face, and then we can also scale it up on the z-axis, and then also scale it, and we'll hit X and scale it down on the x-axis, and scale the whole thing down a bit. Then I will extrude it out, and we'll just extrude out a little bit, and then we'll extrude it out, and then scale it up on the z-axis, so hit S and then Z, we can scale it up, and then extrude it. The I key to inset that face, and then we can also scale it up on the z-axis, and then also scale it, and we'll hit X and scale it down on the x-axis, and scale the whole thing down a bit. Then I will extrude it out, and we'll just
extrude. That's fine.
extrude out a little bit, and then we'll extrude it out, and then scale it up on the z-axis, so hit S and then Z, we can scale it up, and then extrude it out again, just like that. Let's now hit tab to go back to object mode. That's going to be the base of the fish, so we'll now model the fins. So in object mode, I'm going to add a new object, so press Shift A for the add menu. Let's click here to add a cube, and I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can hit G to grab and bring the cube over on the x-axis, and then hit S to scale and scale it down on the z-axis, and then scale the whole thing down a bit. Let's hit tab to go back to object mode, and I can move the cube over and bring it.
I'm getting stressed out. I'm still holding I'm holding my tablet pen with the hope that we will return back to the sculpting, but no, we're just modeling. So I'm putting this back, and I'm sweating. My palms are sweaty from.
Down, and you can see because I was editing it in object mode, the origin point is still in the very center here. So if I click here to go to the modifiers, let's click on add modifier. I can click here for the search, and I will search for mirror. We'll add the mirror modifier so it's mirrored over to the other side because the mirror point is going to be from the origin. So I'll hit tab to go into edit.
What the heck? Oh, what did I just do? Oh, I pressed the. What? There.
X and scale it down on the x-axis and scale the whole thing down a bit. Again, press Shift A for the add menu. Let's click here to add a cube, and I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can hit G to grab and bring the cube over on the x-axis, and then hit S to scale and scale it down on the z-axis, and then scale the whole thing down.
And then scale the whole thing down. At least I'm following.
Down a bit. Let's hit tab to go back to object mode, and I can move the cube over and bring it down. And you can see because I was editing it in object mode, the origin point is still in the very center here. So if I click here to go to the modifiers, let's click on add modifier.
Let's click here and go to modifier.
I can click here for the search, and I will search for mirror. We'll add the mirror modifier so it's mirrored over to the other side because the mirror point is going to be from the origin. So I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can bring it in here into the fish, maybe bring it down a little bit and bring it back a bit. And then if I hold down the Z button and go into wireframe view, I will hit A to deselect everything.
Dude, slow down!
I will click and I can click here for the search, and I will search for mirror. We'll add the mirror modifier so it's mirrored over to the other side because the mirror point is going to be from the origin. So I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can bring it in here into the fish, maybe bring it down a little bit and bring it back a bit. And then if I hold down the Z button and go into wireframe view, I will hit A to deselect everything. I will click and drag just to box select that part of the fin, and I'll scale it down on the Y-axis to make it.
Please, I'm running out of energy. I'm running out of energy.
Then the Z button and go into wireframe view. is going to be from the origin. So I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can bring it in here into the fish, maybe bring it down a little bit and bring it back a bit. And then if I hold down the Z button and go into wireframe view, I will hit A to deselect everything. I will click and drag just to box select that part of the fin, and I'll scale it down on the Y-axis to make it pointy. Let's go back to solid view, and I will press Control R. Control R is going to add a loop cut, and I will left click and then right click so the loop cut stays where it is. And then if I select this vertex here, and then I'll hold down the shift key and select for mirror, we'll add the mirror modifier so it's mirrored over to the other side, because the mirror point is going to be from the origin. So I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and I can bring it in here into the fish, maybe bring it down a little bit and bring it back a bit. And then if I hold down the Z button and go into wireframe view, I will hit A to deselect everything. I will click and drag just to box select that part of the fin, and I'll scale it down on the Y-axis to make it pointy. Let's go back to solid view, and I will press Control R. Control R is going to add a loop cut, and I will left click and then right click so the loop cut stays where it is. And then if I select this vertex here,
Control R doesn't do anything. Oh, wait. There we go.
Then the shift key and select this vertex here. I can hit G to grab and bring it out on the x-axis and just make that fin longer. Maybe select everything with the A key and scale everything up on the y-axis. Then I can rotate it. Let's rotate it around. You can also double tap the R key, and that will enable the trackball rotation. And you can kind of rotate that down and bring it down a little bit, something like that. Let's hit tab to go back to object mode, and I'll press Control 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels. And then we can hit tab to go back into edit mode, and I will press
Oh my goodness.
Control R to add a loop cut. I will left click and then drag this down over here, and then left click again right there. Hit tab, scale everything up on the y-axis. Then I can rotate it. Let's rotate it around. You can also double tap the R key, and that will enable the trackball rotation. And you can kind of rotate that down and bring it down a little bit, something like that. Let's hit tab to go back to object mode, and I'll press Control 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels. And then we can hit tab to go back into edit mode, and I will press Control R to add a loop cut. I will left click and then drag this down over 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels. And then we can hit tab to go back into edit mode, and I will press Control R to add a loop cut. I will left click and then drag this down over here, and then left click again right there. Hit tab to go back to object mode, and I will use the object context menu and then choose shade smooth. I use the right click select in Blender, so I hit the W key, but you can just right click and then click on shade smooth. Let's also now add like a fin on the top. So I will press Shift C to make sure the 3D cursor is in the very center there. I will go to the Add menu and we'll add a cube. I'll press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and we'll bring the cube up. And then
Dude, why does it keep freaking frack? Oh my god.
We'll use the cursor in the very center there. I will go to the Add menu and we'll add a cube. I'll press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and we'll bring the cube up. And then I will use the object context menu and shade it smooth. Then we'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to scale it down on the x-axis, and then also scale it down on the z-axis. And go back to object mode and move it over and bring it down here. And then I can select these 2 vertices and bring it back a bit. Something like that. Select these 2 vertices and bring them back a little bit. Select everything. Use the object context menu and shade it smooth. Then we'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to scale it down on the x-axis, and then also scale it down on the z-axis. And go back to object mode and move it over and bring it down here. And then I can select these 2 vertices and bring it back a bit. Something like that. Select these 2 vertices and bring them back a little bit. Select everything and maybe scale it down on the z-axis or on the x-axis like that. And then I can press Ctrl R for a loop cut. And I can drag this down just to sharpen it and maybe scale everything.
Dude, why am I editing on my freaking tablet if you're just gonna not sculpt? Not sculptors! The not sculptors! They're not sculpting! Build homes. Ban cars.
Down on the z down here, and then I can the x-axis like that, and then I can press Ctrl R for a loop cut, and I can drag this down just to sharpen it and maybe scale everything down on the z-axis like that. Alright, go back to object mode, and that's looking pretty good. So that's going to be the basic base mesh that we're going to use to sculpt, but I need to join this all together so that it's one object. So before I join an object together, I need to make sure that all the modifiers are the same or all the modifiers are applied. So the axis or on the x-axis like that, and then I can press Ctrl R for a loop cut, and I can drag this down just to sharpen it and maybe scale everything down on the z-axis like that. Alright, go back to object mode, and that's looking pretty good. So that's going to be the basic base mesh that we're going to use to sculpt, but I need to join this all together so that it's one object. So before I join an object together, I need to make sure that all the modifiers are the same or all the modifiers are applied. So what I'm going to do is click on the fins here, and if I open the side panel, you can see there is this mirror modifier. So let's click on the drop down arrow right here and click on apply. So if I go into edit mode, you can see it's actual geometry now. So now you can see that each one of these objects have the same subdivision surface modifier. So I'll select the fin, hold down the shift key, select the other fin, and then hold down the shift key and select the body last. And I will press Ctrl J, and that's going to join it together into one object. Now I want to make this much more detailed, so here on the levels viewport and render, I'm going to click here to turn these up so it's very, very smooth.
No, wait,
turn them up
what's happened? No, my fish, it turned geometric. My fish, what happened to you? What did they do to my boy? Okay, good.
Like a feather into one object. Now I want to make this much more detailed, so here on the levels viewport and render, I'm going to click here to turn these up so it's very, very smooth, and I'm going to turn them up to like a 5, so it's really smooth. And then if I click on the drop down, I can click on apply to apply the modifier. So if I hit tab to go into edit mode, you can see the fish now is pretty detailed. So we can now go into sculpt mode. Before we do that though, let's save the project. So I'll click on file and click on save. And I'll just rename this to fish sculpt and then click on save Blender file and just save that on my computer. So now we can click right here to go to Blender sculpt mode, and it's going to take us into the sculpting mode here. And then also we have all the tools and the brushes. Now before we start sculpting this, if I zoom in here and I go inside the sculpt, you can see that there is mesh which is overlapping. We definitely don't want this, because if I start to sculpt here, you can see there's going to be some really weird issues where the mesh is overlapping because they are two different meshes. So what I'm going to do is use Blender's remesh feature to actually remesh this all together so that it is one object and it will connect and it won't be two different pieces of the object. So again, to use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here and then just click when it is pretty high quality. So I'm going to make it about that high quality, and then you can press Control R and that's going to remesh it. So now you can see if I zoom in here, you can see it's connecting. If I go into edit mode, you can see the mesh is connecting.
Oh, what are you talking about? I pressed R and it rotated! It rotated! You lied to me!
That high quality. And to use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here.
Okay. Let me make sure I'm pressing the same R key. R key. Oh no, the fish is rotating. It's spinning. It's spinning. It's going to explode. So that didn't work. So what just happened? Also, wait, I want to add more things to the...
Here and then just click when it is connected and it won't be two different pieces of the object. So again, to use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here and then just click when it is pretty high quality. So I'm going to make it about that high quality, and then you can press Control R and that's going to remesh it. So now you can see if I zoom in here, you can see it's connecting. If I go into edit mode, you can see the mesh is connected. About that. So again, to use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here and then just click when it is pretty high quality. So I'm going to make it about that high quality.
I'm pressing the R key and it's rotating the fish. The fish won't stop rotating.
And use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here and then just will connect and it won't be two different pieces of the object. So again, to use the remesh, you can press the R key and then you can drag your mouse here and then just click when it is pretty high quality. So I'm going to make it about that high quality, and then you can press Control R and that's going to remesh it. So now you can see if I zoom in here, you can see it's connecting. If I go into edit mode, you can see the mesh is connecting, and also if I go inside here, you can see there isn't any overlapping faces or any objects which are separate. So it's all just one object. So now we can start to sculpt this. Now, as I talked about earlier, we want to turn on the symmetry so it mirrors.
The program is crashing. Me when the program crashes. Me when the program crashes. Boom, boom. Not responding. Well, hello. Oh, the fish is gone. Let's just delete. I'm so sorry. It's not even ending proper. I'm going to bring up task manager. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Now it's not opening. Did I break it? It would help if I wouldn't have to look over my tablet every time, so I'm just going to. Um, oh, oh, hello? Dude, I made the remesh too. My computer. It's oh my god. No way. It's using 81% of my memory. Uh, damn. I think the fish is gone. I think the fish is gone. I think we have to start over. Ready? Nissan, yeah. Yeah, no, it's the file's dead. Or like it's not gonna open. So let's just make a new one, I guess. Damn, all that work. that was what, 7 minutes? I'm so sorry. Sorry, that was way too loud. Bum 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 bottom bottom bum 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 bum. Was that a sorry? I couldn't hear. Smite them. Yeah.
Bring it down on the z-axis and bring it over on the y-axis. Let's now
Okay, that was fun.